Welcome to the Resilience Report, where each week we share the latest on companies engaging in inspirational solutions for our planet and engage with ecopreneurs and lighthouse leaders disrupting their respective industries in pursuit of better, more resilient business. I'm your host, Florence Scott. Thank you for joining me as we dive into this week's report. For those of you who know me, you know that I love being active. Whether it's hiking in the mountains or Pilates in my basement, physical activity is a big part of how I remain resilient in my day-to-day life. And if ever you've seen me in person or on social media engaged in one of these activities, you have, without a doubt, seen this next brand. I've been a huge fan of ORAKI Activewear for years. Their clothing is made locally here in Canada and crafted from eco-friendly materials. To top it all off, each piece is gorgeous, comfortable, and extremely flattering. These honestly are the only leggings I own. And the visionary behind this brand? Cynthia Savard. Before founding ORAKI, Cynthia worked for 15 years at some of the biggest names in the fashion industry as head designer. Determined to climb the ladder, she landed a position in charge of a design team and traveled the world. Exposed to fast fashion and clothes made from animal byproducts, she set herself a goal that would determine the rest of her career: to create a sustainable solution to transform this industry. It was in 2014 that Cynthia was first exposed to recycled fabric from plastic bottles. At the time, this fiber was still very little used in the fashion industry. In 2016, after 2 years of research and in-factory trials, Cynthia took the plunge. She quit her job, threw herself into the unknown, and one thing led to another, creating ORAKI. From designing with these cutting-edge materials to reshaping how we think about ethical production and supply chains, Cynthia and her team are proving that fashion can be both stylish and sustainable. In this episode, we'll be diving into what inspired her to launch ORAKI, how she's built a thriving online community with little to no advertising, and her experience pitching on Dragon's Den. Plus, we'll even explore her latest venture, Akanoma, and the lessons she's learned as an entrepreneur who's truly in it for the long haul. When I launched the Resilience Report 2 years ago, I made my wish list of potential guests. At the top of that list in the fashion space was ORAKI. To be able to sit down and chat with Cynthia all about the company that she built was truly a dream come true. Please join me in welcoming the one, the only, the visionary, Cynthia Savard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Resilience Report. I woke up so excited this morning because for our listeners who know, outside of having a corporate job, if I'm not working, I'm outside doing sports, I'm hiking. And over the past few years, when doing so, I've always been wearing the following brand. It is a brand called ORAKI, and today we have their inspiring founder with us. So welcome to the show, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
I was preparing for this call and I was doing research and I was so impressed and surprised to see that clothing design is actually something that you have loved doing. And I think you said all the way back starting at 7 years old. So what sparked that initially? And then what is it that you love so much about the fashion space?
Yes, I just remember very vividly when I was young, my mother left me with my grandmother. She kind of went away for like 4 or 5 days with her friends. And then she left me with a pad, some paper and crayon to draw. And at my grandmother's house, back then it was very popular, the Sears magazines. Do you remember seeing it? I was like going through the Sears magazine and like picking up the things that I wanted for Christmas, for example, or I don't remember it correctly, but I remember seeing all these beautiful women like wearing dresses and t-shirts and jeans, whatever. So and I was very I was just looking at them and I started to draw to draw them on a piece of paper. And then I got very interested in the clothing actually. So as the day went by, I was just designing clothing. So when my mother came back, she saw all of the drawings and she was very impressed. And that was a magazine I was also sold at that time called like a Top Model. I don't know if that exists anymore, but yeah, I started to buy those magazines with my mother. And I was looking at the top models like from all over the world and all the pictures and all the dresses. And then I never stopped drawing. I was 7 years old and here I am. Yeah.
And part of that journey was back, I believe it was around 2016 that you actually founded ORAKI. So was there, so you had been continuing to draw and do this clothing design. What was it when you were looking at the space and you thought there's kind of this gap and this opportunity to then develop and launch ORAKI?
Well, actually, it was not part of my thought when I first started with ORAKI. I haven't even asked myself, is there a space for me in the market? Should I do that? I just did what I truly love. Yeah, I just went through with my passion, to be honest with you. When I went into fashion design, when I studied fashion design, I was really, everybody around me was saying I should not do that because there was no like jobs after and it would be very difficult for me at the end. And I remember in a marketing class at the fashion school, there was a teacher that was saying, look at each other, like look at you guys, and there will only be two people that was going to be working in the fashion industry. And
Geez.
yeah, but it's true. And at that moment, I knew I was part of the two ones that's going to be working in the industry. So that's always been my mindset. I always believed in myself. I don't know why, to be honest, but I knew I would find a way to make it work, even as a fashion designer in the fashion world, but also as a business owner when I started. I always knew that if I worked very hard, things would work well for me.
I'd love now to kind of dive in a little bit deeper and share with our listeners all the incredible sustainable work that you're doing with the company. And starting with the fact that, both you and I were just saying off air before, we're both based in the Montreal area. And for our listeners who are less familiar, Montreal actually used to be known as a hub in terms of fashion design and manufacturing just even a few decades ago. But so much of that has changed with offshoring since maybe like the 80s or so. What was the process like? What is the process like of being based here, having so much of that offshoring, but then trying to find an ecosystem of suppliers? Was it an easy project? Is it something that's constantly evolving? I'm trying to find local manufacturers because you do not only design, but 100% of your products are also manufactured here as well.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that when I first started 7 years ago, it was much easier because I was more supplier, more manufacturer here. Now, like some of them ask close, but I'm also on Chabanel. Like on Chabanel and Saint Laurent, which is where the fashion district was back in the day. And so all areas and all like the shops that sells like button, elastic, like any types of trims that you would need to make a productions, they are centered here in this area. So there is less people than before, but I mean there are still companies around here. So that make it very easy for me being here in the district, working with them directly. But also like our manufacturer, they are not here around us. They are, let's say, in Longueuil, or even like Quebec City or close to Quebec City, such as Beauce. So there is like very high-end, very nice manufacturer here in Quebec. You just need to find them, you write them, and you try samples with them. And that's what I did in the beginning. I call all of them. I tried sample with all of them, and then you negotiate the prices, and you see their quality, and then you choose with who you want to work with. And yes, so two of them that I work with since the beginning, they are still my main producer, which is I'm very grateful to have. I mean, we are very grateful to have each other because ORAKI, as you know, is very popular and well known, and people really like our product. So it's kind of a perfect match, basically.
That's amazing that you can kind of support each other as part of that ecosystem. I know one of the main reasons that I initially fell in love with the product is not only that it was made locally, but it was around the materials that you were using in the product. And I think at the time they were primarily focused on recycled material. And I know you've even extended that since then using creative pieces like dented corn or wood pulp. Have you found that it's gotten easier with time as there's more demand for sustainable type materials and maybe there's more suppliers? Or what does that evolution look like over the past few years? Because I'm sure it has changed, especially as your volumes have changed as well.
Yes. When I was actually working for a fashion company before I started ORAKI, there was a company that came to the office and showed the new fabrics. And by that time, I had never ever knew, like I never heard about recycled material. And that one person showed me some recycled material fabrics made from a plastic bottle back then. And I was really impressed and drawn to it. And I started to make some research. This guy was from the US at that time. I don't know, that was kind of a light for me saying, oh my God, like in my own industry, I can make a difference and do something that is not mass market, and I can actually use recycled bio-based material. And I was very excited about it, and I tried to implant this idea into the company I was working for. But the cost of it also is more expensive, so it's not that easy. So back then, it was kind of hard to find supplier and manufacturer that could work those yarns. But I mean, everything in my life kind of been hard since I was young. So I'm used to work hard to get something and really find like the perfect supplier that can make high-end fabrics. But for sure now there is actually shows you can go, like let's say New York, California. You can actually also go to Paris just to have like new supplier that make eco-responsible fabrics. So the time has changed, that's for sure. Yeah. So in the beginning, I was just by myself, like calling them and see what they could do, pay for the shipping to receive the fabrics and try the fabric out. And yeah, it was an amazing journey.
Those must be amazing trade shows. I can only imagine the conversations that you have there, but that's inspiring that it's now become at that level that everybody gets pulled together.
Yeah, there is fabric made from coffee, from mushroom. There is like very amazing technology into fabrics for the fashion industry. Of course, I cannot implement them in ORAKI as much as I wish, because sometimes there is fabric that looks more like a leather fabric, or accessories would be better. But I'm always looking into like what's the trend, what's coming with the innovation into my own industry.
And then beyond materials, I know many of us in the sustainability space are also trying to rethink packaging. And that's another piece that I love when we receive, as customers of ORAKI, we receive, let's say, our leggings. Instead of having a plastic tag on there, it's wrapped with a hair elastic, and then you use pins, and you even have recycled cardboard as your tag to use as a bookmark. All of these things, I just think it's so creative. And for our listeners who are maybe entrepreneurs or business leaders who are trying to rethink packaging, do you have any tips or recommendations as to how they can maybe get started on how they can think outside of the box in terms of tackling packaging waste?
Sure. I mean, depending on your business, for me, when I first started, I didn't want packaging. Like I wanted no packaging at all. So there is things that you don't have a choice to have, such as a hang tag or like a polymailer that you're going to send the package to the customer. But otherwise, I mean, there is so much packaging all the time, like let's say in high-end fashion company, that you have like a satin paper, and then you have a sticker, and then you have a box, and the box is another box, and so there is so many packaging that is going into, I'm going to say recycling bin, but most of the time it's really a garbage. So for me, it's just part of the process, not using any packaging, or if I'm using packaging, I need to be very careful of what I'm doing and try to reuse this. Each piece needs to be reused. That was like in the very first beginning, I really thought out how can I reuse all the packaging that I'm going to be using for my brand. I just thought about like the elastic, for example. I don't know why this idea came to my mind. Like I need something to attach the ink tag to the clothing. Oh, I thought about an elastic, so I make it clear that you can reuse it for your hair. That's just an example, but otherwise, all of our polymer are made from recycled material, also that is recyclable. And there is no like, when you receive the goods, they are not packed in another plastic bag, because
Right.
on each T-shirt are in the plastic bag, and then you receive your package with like a lot of pieces of garment, but they all wrap itself in the plastic bag. Very important for me not to use it, and just as an example, but I try to be very careful about that.
That makes a ton of sense. And I know another area where you try to reduce your waste is that and not of producing too many pieces. And your approach has been very transparent as well, that you'll do shorter runs so as to avoid that surplus. Was that something that was already kind of at the heart of your business model when you decided to set out, or was it more kind of a necessary thing to scale? What did that look like?
When I first started, it was more like a financial thing, because like I didn't follow to make big productions. But at the end, the message is the same. It's very important not to have so much inventory. It's not to overproduce and try to see what's the demand. That's one of the things that is very hard in the company right now when we do our orders and we try to have the exact perfect amount of stock. I'm sure this is a struggle for many entrepreneurs out there. But for us, it's important also not to keep inventory. That's why we don't have like a Black Friday or big sales. All that. We're going to have a sale now at the end of January, but otherwise it's like once or twice a year we have a sale, because we don't really need it. And that's very also interesting for the client, because the client received the style and they have this, it's not like 5,000 people wearing the same T-shirt or hoodie or crew neck. And as a business perspective, it's always nice also to make sure that you have your cash back. You know, when I do like a launch, for example, I do a launch in 5 minutes, one style is sold out. So for me, it's always nice to have a quick run of the styles and just, you know, not get stuck with like many things. And it makes it very special. And this is our business model. I don't know if it's going to change. Hopefully not, because it's going very well for us this way. I like this business model.
And you can definitely follow along on the enthusiasm for the different launches on social media. I know to Cynthia's point, sometimes you sell out in a matter of minutes and you see all of these comments online. There is such a strong following. So hats off, first of all, to your marketing team. They've been amazing to deal with, but they're also incredible at content. So you've created this real community online, and it's allowed, from my understanding of doing the research for this episode, that you actually haven't had to invest too heavily in advertising because there's been such strong word of mouth. How have you thought about building this community and nurturing it over time? Because it certainly is, it seems like such a great support network that you've built up.
Yeah. When I first started, I just kind of showed everybody what I was doing. Like they saw me in the manufacturer with like fabric rolls, fabric making machines, suppliers. Like I brought everyone in my journey when I first started. And this was not a thing back then. Now on TikTok, let's say everybody's doing it. But back then, nobody was doing it. And I was actually talking to the camera or Instagram, Facebook, whatever, saying the real thing. Sometimes I even cried, you know, like I had the high and lows and I shared everything with everyone. So everyone was really drawn to my experience and what I was doing. And they actually also saw that I cared. Like, you know, when I'm making a shirt, a long sleeve, a legging, whatever, I make sure the fabric is perfect, the print is on point, the cut and sew is perfect also, and the fit, everything. When you're going to receive your piece of clothing, you'll make sure you'll love it and it would stay with you for a long time. But I feel like people were really got attached to me and to the whole process and to the company and to the message and also the difference I was making in the world. In the beginning, I had to talk about many things that people really didn't understand, and that people got some frustration with quantities, for example. That was a good point that you brought. But in the beginning, like having not a lot of inventory got me a lot of hate. But at the end, I really understood that I'm here to stay and this is what I want to do. Like I want to produce in small batch. And you come with me or you don't. And it's really your choice. But you'll be very happy having this high quality sweater that not everybody has.
It's so refreshing. And I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of we just feel like we're kind of following along on your journey. I remember one time in particular, I think it was that there was a launch that had been communicated. And then I seem to remember you explaining that you received the product and it just wasn't up to standard. So you had to just say, hey, I know you're interested. I know we talked about this deadline, but it's going to have to get bumped because it's not at the standard as to what I'm looking for.
Exactly. I remember Pradu Listas you were talking about. But yeah, also I make them choose some decision that I have to take in my own business. I ask my people, like, how do you feel about, I have this product, is not in my standard. I don't know what to do with it either. I give it to shelter and people that need clothing, or I don't know, like you want to buy it 50%, or, you know, I try to just see like what would be the best. So they are also part of the journey and they also like what they think is very important for me. We're doing it together. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
And as part of that crazy ride, you were recently on Dragon's Den. So for our American listeners, that is the Canadian version of Shark Tank. And not only were you brave enough to go on, you were also brave enough to then watch the recording back and then film it for social media. So that was really brave of you on both fronts. What was that experience like? And then I'm super curious, how has it changed your team's day-to-day, if at all?
I think the words that you use, brave, it's such a powerful word because that's how I felt, honestly, when I went there. You know, as an entrepreneur, you have to do everything that's out there for you. You have to knock on all of the doors. And this is such a great opportunity to show the rest of Canada, like your product and who you are and what you do. But at the same time, you know, you don't have the control over what's going to be shown on the TV. And it's hard, to be honest. If you go to Dragon's Den, it's not for the weak. You have to be prepared, but you have to be really, really strong and you have to believe in your product, no matter what they're going to say and how they're going to react to any questions they ask and answers they receive. So I am feeling strong, to be honest with you. Like I'm ready, like, but I felt like in the cage with them and like that was a bubble. And I feel like, I don't know, they probably love me very much, but they showed like all the best part. But that was some part when I was there in the real world that it didn't go well that much. And that's why going there was one thing, but the wait in between, like going on the show and watching the show on the TV, it was probably like 5 months. And yeah, I got kind of like, I didn't sleep. Oh yes, I was thinking about how they're gonna show. If is it my business gonna survive? And like, I was asking me like all this time. Oh my gosh. So I would say that the wait was more painful than actually going there. So that's why when I watched the episode, like I cried. Like I cried with my marketing director. Like I was so relieved and happy that they showed like all of the best part. Some part was it was okay, but I mean overall, like I think the company was well showed. Yes.
Amazing. And again, hats off to you for doing that. I think just putting yourself out there, and it's so much part of being an entrepreneur. And clearly, just running the successful business of ORAKI was not enough, because you also have recently launched another business that is super exciting. And I know you've shared with your audience is very much a dream that you've had and been wanting to execute on. So could you share, I guess, two things? Maybe what is this new business? And then what made you want to kind of go above and beyond, and while everything was going well with ORAKI, now also create this new baby of yours, for a lack of a better word?
The new business is called Akanoma. We make boots, shoes, sandals, accessories such as bags made from recycled materials. So the message is the same. It's just different type of product. I've always loved shoes, boots. This is like something I've always dreamed of designing. I remember when I was 24 years old, I was like living in a very small, tiny apartment. I didn't have anything, but I had a dream of like designing shoes, have this company of shoes. And I started draw actually shoes and talking to suppliers and things like that. But things changed, and like I changed my mind. I did other things, and, I had other kind of business back then, but I always had it in my mind. So why did I choose to do it now is because I feel I got a bit stressed out with ORAKI. Not that, I mean, it's going very well. Everything is going well. It's just at some point I was like, oh my God, if something happened to my baby, if something happened to my baby, like what am I going to do and what I'm going to rely on? I have 20 employees, and I just felt if I have something else, maybe I can rely on that thing too. So, and also like creativity, I want to do other things. I mean, I have so many other dreams, not just like business wise, but I mean, we have one life. Like I want to take all the juice, all the juice of life and live my best life. And this is a dream of mine. And I mean, I'm healthy. I have the money, like I have the team. Let's do this. So I started it's been 3 years actually. I'm working on Akanoma. I can't believe we just launched this now. That journey was very, very hard actually. It was harder than ORAKI.
Is that just because it's very different world of suppliers, or what makes that more challenging versus perhaps more in the ORAKI world?
Few reasons. I think that I'm also like a fashion designer. I've been in the fashion industry for like nearly 20 years now, and I'm not in the shoe industry, so that's why I made a lot of mistakes that I wouldn't do if I wasn't in that industry before. And also trying out supplier, because it's not like you find someone and this is like the perfect match and you're going in production with them. You have to try them out and do a sample. For us, it took us like 4 months. Okay, so we did some samples with supplier, 4 months each, few $1,000s also into this and time. But I was not satisfied. So even after like a year and a half, I was not satisfied with anybody. So I was very discouraged and I wanted to quit. But yeah, so and eventually I found someone else. I was like, that's going to be my last one. Let's try this supplier and it's going to be my last one. If it's not working, I'm going to close Akanoma. I'm not going to do anything about it. And
Wow.
this will be a message from the universe saying like, you are already so busy. Stay with us. So, and then, yeah, when I received the first sample with this supplier, I was very like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And the fit is amazing in the fabric and the communication also. Communication is very important. So everything was perfect. I was like, that's it. I'm doing it. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure so many people are happy that you were able to see it through and can now see all the different collections coming out. You did mention of kind of keeping that energy. And I know it cannot be easy being an entrepreneur. You're mentioning you have 20 people relying on you, and there's the ups and downs, and especially trying to be an entrepreneur in the sustainability space probably has its own set of challenges. So have you found any tools over the years that have helped you keep on coming back to the work as a leader, as a visionary for your brand?
Yes, I mean, there will always be like hard phase, even in your personal life. There are things we cannot avoid. I had in the past, I have now. I'm sure you do also. Like everybody has, like it's the life is not perfect. It's not like a clean water. But I also feel the same in the business. To be honest with you, like I feel you have like many. Honestly, my work is just to find solutions for problems. Every day I come here, I just have problems, and I need to find solutions. That's why I'm here. I feel like I'm good. I'm finding solution in my personal life and also in my business, and I don't mind doing that. So yeah, when you accept this is life and that's how things gonna go, and sometimes you are in the phase like everything is going well, and you just like thank the sky or thank God or whatever like is close to your heart. But like for me in the business is the same thing. Like some weeks are amazing, and I'm feeling on top of the world, and I'm feeling the best entrepreneur of the year. And sometimes I feel like I just want to, go sleep with the trash and my decision and, nothing is working out. So this is like the high and low of the entrepreneur life, but I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And a special angle to the entrepreneurship really is the sustainability piece. I was wondering as well, you were mentioning up top as to how your passion for fashion design started. But what about the sustainability piece? Was that always part of it as well? Or is that something that evolved over maybe the time prior to founding ORAKI? What did that look like?
Yeah, it's a question that I read and made me think, how did I started to like care for the environment? And I don't know, like when I was young, I'm from a family where we were eating meat like all the time. And I just felt like I didn't want to eat meat anymore. Like I was very like drawn to animals, and I didn't want to eat them. And I was very, very young. Like I remember my mom was making pizza, and for me, she was putting like broccoli and carrots and all type of it on the pizza. So yeah, and then also like I'm from Rimouski, and Rimouski is close to the Saint Laurent River. Like I actually see the Saint Laurent River from my house. So we all like playing around the river or playing in forest and playing in nature all the time. So we are very connected to it. I mean, when I was I think 15 years old, I stopped eating meat completely, and now I'm 41. And I haven't eaten meat since then. Being a vegan and then a vegetarian, now I'm a vegetarian, but being close to the world and to what surround us and the animals, and not wanting to hurt anyone and anything. And that's always been part of my journey. When I was working as a fashion designer, I remember I was like making winter jackets, and we had to use like a real fur and all type of the animal product to make the jackets. And this really, really felt like against my values. And I remember trying to sell to my boss, "Oh, this fabric is made, we don't need animal product, and there was like fake fur we can use," and this and that. And he actually gave me a chance to do some kind of a jacket that was different, but then nobody was buying them. So everybody also like the market was really drawn to the real fur at that time. Like you remember the real fur, like, and then that was also wool that we would use. And I hadn't any choice of using those fabric because that was my work, and I had to pay bills. But when the chance came for me to actually make my own brand, for sure I'm gonna stay away from animal byproduct, and for sure I'm gonna try to make a difference and try to use recycled bio-based material. And if I can make here in Canada, this is the best scenario that I have for my brands.
Well, your brands are phenomenal. Again, we've run through it with our listeners, but made locally, phenomenal materials. And I do want to also point out that while they're made from these sustainable materials, they're also gorgeous and are the best feeling products too. So I do want to call that out, because I think sometimes when we're in sustainability, we think it's one or the other, but you've managed to find a marriage between those ideas.
But thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like,
if our listeners want to go check out either of your brands, where would you recommend that they go first?
yes, you can come to the website oraki.ca or akanoma.com. We are also everywhere, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We have French, English page. And you see me sharing my entrepreneur life, our office life, and everything that's, up and down in the business. So we're very excited to show the world what we do.
Well, thank you for everything that you share and for coming on today and sharing your passion for this space. I do want to end the episode with the same question that we ask on every episode, which is, what do you think it will take for businesses and leaders to be resilient going forward?
That's a very good question. I would say that knowing problems and hard time will come, they will come. So just be prepared and always try to find a solution and be positive. Like I think being positive, even though in the hard times, it's a great way to start. but knowing that there will always be high and low, no matter what. So just knowing that and keep forward.
Thank you so much once again. I'm a huge fan of everything that you're doing, and I just appreciate you taking the time out today to join us on the Resilience Report.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I hope that you've enjoyed this week's edition of the Resilience Report. If you would like to hear and see more, be sure to check out @The Resilience Report on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until we connect again, remember, even on the darkest of days, we all have the opportunity to be a lighthouse for others as we collectively pursue better, more resilient business.